Hi, welcome back to my reading corner. Grab yourself a cozy blanket and a pillow, and let's read. We've been reading When the Dandelions Sing, and today we're on chapter 10, Running from It All. After that terribly cold, wintry day Mama gave birth to me, she went back to Granddad and Grammy's place to get settled in. This was just another dubious bump in the road, she thought, but man, those bumps were hitting her like a freight train more and more, it would seem. Still, she had me, and with a new baby boy, Mama was all too happy to change diapers, clean spit up, and take a few weeks off from her job and her schooling. She needed the rest. Her body and mind were getting run down, and she just needed a chance to collect herself some. Then she figured she could get right back at it and start her plan of getting back out on her own 2 feet with her now growing family, and back to the old dreams she had for all of us. Granddad, though, had been keeping a close eye on Mama because, well, she just appeared more run down than normal. When she arrived home with her other newborn babies, she'd had more energy than a bucking bull trying to toss off a cowboy as quickly as possible. She just couldn't sit still and refused any help, but not in a gruff way. She just wanted to do everything for herself, and she did for the most part. Now, though, she seemed a bit off. Maybe it was because she did this one alone. While she had Davy alone, she had, in some sense of the word, helped through the 9 months she carried him. She had someone to return to, until she didn't, and that at least gave her hope over most of her pregnancy, until the last day. This time, there had been no man by her side for the 9 months. Granddad was there for her, but that just wasn't the same in her mind. She needed a companion through those lonely, long pregnancy months, those nights she craved ice chips and bananas. Maybe it was the schooling and the work finally catching up to her while she came home and still had to attend to 3 kids and a newborn, me. He didn't know for sure, but he watched her a little closer. Grammy told him it was just part of being a mother, and that sometimes after you have a certain number of children, your body and mind will inevitably go through changes. You feel different, act different, and see things differently. It would go away eventually, she assured him, and DB would be back to her normal self, laughing and energetic as ever. Granddad agreed that it made sense, but one could tell he wasn't totally buying into that notion. For now, he would just be a little more present. This was important for him to do, and when he had his mind set on something, that was just how it would be. Period. You would not change that man, but he played it off well for Grammy. I was a good baby, at least from what I was told. Not overly fussy, not really crying a lot, mostly happier than not, and that made things a little easier for sure. Thelma Louise was a huge help to Mama because she was the eldest and took a liking to having a newborn baby around. It was almost as if I were a doll baby for her, and she begged Mama to change my wet diapers and take me on small walks in the stroller that Grammy had bought for Mama and me. Pushing it up the dusty road out front of the house was not an easy task, so on the days Mama went into town, Thelma Louise tagged along. The trips to town gave her and Mama a chance to bond, as they had lost that recently. It had been some time since her and Mama enjoyed a conversation about nothing in particular, and both had missed it. Mama just figured it was a phase she was going through, and that no matter what she did for Thelma Louise, it would make no difference. Here, though, with me as a new addition to the family, Thelma Louise found purpose once again. She found a reason to be around Mama more and to actually talk with her. This extra time together was important to their fading bond, and honestly, they truly enjoyed it. At 10 years young, Thelma Louise was not what people would consider a happy-go-lucky child. She was moodier than not, but she didn't wish to be. Her personality was one where she didn't feel the need to force a candid smile when a lot of times other people would. You know how when you're given a gift of socks and you really wanted a ball glove, but you still forced a wide smile to be as polite and thankful as possible. She didn't. Saying thank you was no issue for her. She could do that. It was the smiling she just couldn't draw herself to do when she didn't feel like it. Mama would always say things like, "Oh, she's just a little tired today," or, "Thelma Louise, smile, honey. Are you just not feeling okay today, honey?" It was Mama's way of covering for her seemingly normal moody behavior that could easily come across as ungrateful. But truly, Thelma Louise didn't want to feel that way. She struggled with it deep inside, and late at night, when everyone was tucked in for the evening, she would silently cry herself until her eyes would become heavy enough to close off to the world. It was just hard on her, not being able to do what everyone else seemed to do effortlessly. Why had she been feeling so down? She loved Mama, Granddad, and Grammy. She enjoyed her siblings, although she could be found fighting with them over the simplest of things, like any kids do. She didn't really ask much about her birth father, having let that all stay in the past. School was okay. She had friends and didn't really feel overwhelmed all that much, so she just couldn't put her finger on it, and it hurt her immensely. Even for a 10-year-old girl, she understood pain and frustration almost like an adult would. It would seem that both Thelma Louise and Mama were having some changes in their moods and energy, or lack of, and even with their overall personalities. Grammy was doing her best to help with Davy, while Mama was tending to me most of the time, as the newborn baby of the family. Both Janet and Thelma Louise were attending school during the day, so that made it slightly easier on the load, but still, the dynamic of the family was changing some, and it seemed Mama was wearing thin. Davy was finding himself in an unusual spot for him. He was the baby prior to my coming along, and he was the one who got all the attention, especially from Mama. Now, though, that was not the case. Watching Mama give her undivided attention, especially in those first few months of my life, was really hard for Davy. He tried doing whatever he could to get everyone's attention. First, he went back into baby mode. That is, back to fake crying, and talking like he was younger than he really was. Breaking things to get some attention was becoming the new norm for him, and Grammy was trying to get him under control, but Davy was having meltdowns. One Saturday morning, Davy made up his mind to run away, and at 9 in the morning, he took a duffel bag he had packed the night before, added some salted crackers for the road, and walked out the back door, down to the woods that lined the back of our house, and disappeared from sight. It had just started to warm up some, but in the morning the air still had a crisp chill to it. Davy, dressed in his favorite blue and white pajamas, with exaggerated baseballs and bats all over them, was not prepared at all. After about 30 minutes of running as far as he could, he felt as if he were far enough away that he was now on his own. But then he felt that he heard Granddad hollering his name over and over, coming from what seemed like slightly different directions with each shout. It was as if Granddad was calling to the left and then the right, and then from the front of the house and then the back. Grammy stepped off the back porch and started to yell, "David!" Then a short break of a few seconds and, "David!" This time louder. Davy felt both accomplished and frightened. He felt like they were showing they indeed loved him, because it hadn't taken all that long to discover that he was missing. But what was he going to do now? And how had they been so close to him already? He had walked for a long time, at least in a 5-year-old's mind. Now they were what felt like just yards away. Davy was also feeling colder now, and was hearing sounds that he didn't recognize. The pajamas he had on kept getting caught on the brush in the woods, causing rips and tears and slight scratches to both his legs and arms. Maybe this was enough to show them he was serious, that he needed more attention, and that I needed less. He felt as if there was an imbalance going on, and he was protesting it in the best way he knew how, by leaving. Make everyone feel as if he were gone forever, and it had taken Davy only 30 minutes or so to realize that he needed to go back. While he did head back, he could see Granddad halfway across the wooded lot, navigating the fresh growth of greens and browns. Davy put his head down and walked to him. Granddad, being the man he was, and reading the situation so well, just told him, "David, we were so worried about you. Boy, am I glad you're safe. Listen, I'll handle Grammy and your mama for you, okay? I can just tell them you needed a little walk and got lost some. That I came out to find you, and it was you that found me. Okay? Let's go back home, son. I think we could use a little ice cream in town, don't you?" While Davy struggled with the loss of attention, Janet hardly took much notice of me at all in the beginning. She was busy being a typical 7-year-old little girl who, for some reason or another, favored her left side constantly for just about everything. No one really took much notice, and if they did, just brushed it off as Janet being a little quirky. This one time, when she was at another child's birthday party with friends from school, she had been holding a simple white plastic cup of apple juice in her left hand, and someone went to give her a slice of birthday cake in her right. Janet placed the cup down and almost did a complete turn so she could take the cake with her left hand, nearly knocking it to the ground in the process. The adult just thought she was being a silly kid, but Janet knew it was becoming a habit for her. She smiled slightly, almost embarrassingly, and said, "Thank you." The woman stared momentarily as if she knew something was off, and later told Mama she thought something might be wrong with Janet. Mama had seen the left-hand favoritism, but never paid much attention to it. She had once nonchalantly brought it up to Janet, and Janet just sheepishly nodded and tried to change the subject. Mama felt it was just a phase anyhow, and not hurting anyone, including Janet, so there wasn't much of a reason to fuss, and that was that. As the first months turned into the first year for me, we all kind of settled into our new family life, me without a choice in the matter, and everyone else just adjusting as families do. Life was pretty normal for the most part. Davy had stopped trying to run off, and Granddad became more of a father figure for him. Davy appreciated the bond that they were forming between them, and so did Granddad. He liked that Davy would sit on the front porch steps with him and just talk. Granddad would tell Davy about the reasoning behind allowing the dandelions to grow so high, and Davy would nod and pretend to understand. Davy would tell him all about school and how his teachers were always telling him to push a little more, try a little harder with his studies. That made Davy feel inadequate, but Granddad assured him that his time would come, and when it did, that he would do great things. "Davy, every man has his time. We all get a time to shine, a time when things line up just a little more. When that time comes, you just need to be ready for it. Don't let those teachers make a fuss about too much right now. You just need to do the best you can, son, and listen to me. When that time comes, you be ready, you hear? You just be ready. The world can be yours if you are just ready." Then he would look off into the distance as if he were envisioning it all for Davy. Davy thought Granddad was giving him a speech and trying to make him feel better about how life was going at the moment. He was too young to take it to heart, but it was something he heard more than once. Just be ready when your time comes. Davy wanted to remember that, so he tried to apply it to things a little here and there. On the baseball field and waiting for a pop fly ball this way, just be ready. Heading for a night camping in the woods with Granddad and wondering if a bear would find its way to their food supply, just be ready. Davy, over time, turned that into something of a personal mantra. Just be ready. One day it would be his time to shine, and he would be ready. At Red Creek Elementary, the kids learned about many things, including math, science, the difference between there, spelled T-H-E-I-R, there, T-H-E-R-E, and there, T-H-E-Y''R-E, and one of the more popular subjects for young kids, their town's heritage. How did Red Creek get its name exactly? Stories have been passed down about Indian tribes once roaming the area, and that it could have been named after chief known as Chief Red Sparrow. When the elders of the town told the story, they sometimes chuckled at the end. Men would argue over the origin of the town name, and older men would swear by that Chief Red Sparrow legend. but the schools told a very different story of the name. In their teachings, the red in Red Creek had come from the large amount of heavy clay soil in the area. It made it nearly impossible in some areas to grow proper crops, so the Indians named it Makskimipi, or Red Water. This was a Lenape Indian area, the teachers said, and they knew the land well enough to know they should plant further out where the earth was not rich with clay. Some teachers felt that was inaccurate, that the Lenape tribe never ventured to this area at all, and that the name simply came from folklore. Either way, as young kids growing up in Red Creek, we developed a sense of pride for our little town, and even argued like the adults did over what we knew was the rightful reason for its name. Our parents and grandparents told us, so it must be true. The issue was that the stories were different enough that we were really calling other people liars if we didn't believe their version over our own. Boys would fistfight over the origin of a town name that ultimately meant very little. It was more about the pride of family and being right, and no Red Creek boy would let anyone tell them their ancestors were liars. Maybe all the bloody noses in town from those fights would become a legend as to why the town got its name one day. Mama was feeling much better about herself, and that made Grammy, and especially Granddad, happy. Maybe Grammy had been right. She just needed some time to mentally recover from her past loss and what Andy had done. Time to understand the changes that happened when you had a baby, and time to get a handle on the fact she was a single mom of 4 young kids. Just because she had 3 and they seemed to not affect her personality or mental state at all, didn't mean more would not. These were things Granddad could just not understand, no matter how hard he tried. All in all, though, his DB seemed back to herself, and he was quite relieved to have her. They had an incredibly strong bond, those two, and that would never change. Granddad told her it was the bond of a mighty oak tree, and therefore unbreakable. Yes, the McFarlands were settling back into Old Red Creek, Pennsylvania for the most part. Mama had changed her last name back to her maiden, and subsequently the names of Thelma Louise, Janet, and Davy, too. She figured that it was time to have all the children have proper, respectful last names. When a daddy left, she felt, he should take his name along with him. The kids should be proud of their names and not wonder where it came from or where it had gone when someone up and left without a word. So began the McFarland change, and the kids were feeling quite excited to share something more with Granddad and Grammy than just their home. It was exciting to have a new name. They were legitimately McFarlands. And that is the end of Chapter 10. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for another chapter. Bye.